Welcome everybody to this Google Hangout with LINGOs entitled Learn How NGOs Manage Projects. My name is Ben, and on behalf of Philanthropy University, we're so excited to have you guys join. We have a great discussion planned for you all, and we have LINGOs and John Cropper, Director of Capacity Building at LINGOs, joining us, and I'll let him give a good introduction to himself, as well as the work that LINGOs is doing. But before that, I did want to say a hello to everyone joining us on both our Google Plus channels and on YouTube. We're very excited for this discussion to happen, and we're excited to hear any of the questions you guys might be including online. In addition, we have 4 wonderful learners from Philanthropy University joining us as well, and so I did want to give them some time to introduce themselves. So if you all can say your name, where you're calling from, and something you're just really interested to learn about with regards to project management, then that would be wonderful. So Angela, if you don't mind starting, that would be great.
Yes, my name is Angela Douglas. I'm calling from upstate New York, Syracuse specifically, and I'm really interested to know and understand how and when to pull the plug on a failing project, specifically allowing time for turnaround and yet not wasting resources.
Oh, and Angela, why don't we just add one more thing? If you wanted to sort of talk about the organization you're working with, or talk about any relevant projects, we have the time, so please feel free to add that.
Okay, thank you. Currently, I work for a religious organization, a faith-based organization here, but my previous work has been both in the education and government fields, and have worked on numerous projects over the years. And here we tend to operate globally, and so with many opportunities to do that, I think making sure the project is executed well and the outcome really reaps the greatest benefit is a huge priority for us. So any insight is really helpful.
Great, great. We're excited to have you. Thanks so much, Angela. And now, Anne, I'll pass the mic to you.
Sorry, that was a bit unexpected. So hi, everyone. My name is Anne. I'm calling from France, originally from the US. And I have worked in the Philippines, Ecuador, and the UK, predominantly in management consultation, and in the UK in supported housing for homeless people. And it's a pleasure to meet you all.
Great, thanks so much, Anne. And Yongyi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, thank you. I'm Junji, and I'm calling from Europe as well, but not from France, but from Central Europe. I am from Hungary. It's a small country in the heart of Europe, and I'm running many for-profits and non-profits in a chain, but one of my non-profits has a focus with the European Union. 28 countries of Europe are joined in a huge political and industrial economical union, and this is called EU. I'm saying this for all those who are not so familiar with the term. So this is EU, and we have a huge project built around the biggest river in Europe, and this is called Danube. Danube strategy we are running. European Union invented it a few years ago, 5 or 6, I'm not sure. And it's a cultural-based, financial-based, and economic-based program which aims some kind of a unification of historically differentiated and divided nations into a huge community that can communicate but keep traditions as well. So we have numerous successes. I'm in the Central European region as CEO, and we have significant success in this project. And I joined to this event, to this office hour, just to meet John and his views, his viewpoints. Maybe that could mean a refreshing something to our originally ran project management strategies. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And our last learner to introduce themselves is Shaili.
Hi everyone, this is Shaili Sridivas. I'm calling in from Bangalore in India. I actually work for an organization called FICA Social Solutions, and I manage projects and programs at this organization. So at FICUS, actually what we do is we work with other NGOs and social impact organizations and help provide capacity building solutions to at the organization level, at the projects and program level, and even at the individual level. So one of the reasons I'm here is, primarily because I help manage projects and programs. One is because I'm a recent crossover from the corporate sector, so I made the shift to the social space about 2 years ago. So I'm very keen to understand, the different perspectives when it comes to the project management space, and obviously, in order to help our clients, would like to, adopt best practices in this space. So I'm actually very, very excited to be here.
Great, and we're excited to have you. So before I introduce John, on behalf of Philanthropy University, we're just very excited about this. This is our first programming partnership with an organization, and I think once John talks a little bit more about LINGOs, everyone will sort of see the sort of natural partnership opportunities there, and sort of how our missions are very much aligned. So, John, I leave it to you to sort of give an introduction. Again, thank you so much for joining us during this this call.
No, thank you so much, Ben. And it is really, really exciting to be here. As you said, it's about, this is the first time we're working together, and it's great that it's on a topic, speaking personally, that's so dear to my heart. So I couldn't be happier. So let me give a bit of an introduction just to my organization, to LINGOs, and to me, and how they come together, and then we can just get cracking with the questions. So LINGOs, learning in NGOs, the secret's in the name. That's what we're all about. We're very much about trying to help organizations learn, improve. This is their staff, their systems, and we've got members. We've got nearly 90 members who are largely the international NGOs working around the world. We've got if you put their staff together, it's it's something like 200,000 people if you add together all of the staff. But then if you start including their implementing partners, it's much bigger than that. We were started just over 10 years ago, and very much with this focus on learning and helping people looking for synergies, economies of scale around e-learning. So what we typically do with members, we can provide them with a learning management system, access to courses. That's how it was started. And then the members said, could you do something about project management? And the guys who started Lingo said, well, yes, but we need some help from you guys. And so a working group was set up, and I was asked to be on the working group, and I was representing Oxfam GB. I worked for Oxfam GB for 10 years, and before that I worked for the British Council. And within Oxfam I was the program director in Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. And then I managed Oxfam's program and project management systems in the head office, which is here in Oxford, which is where I live now. And my last job with Oxfam was managing a global program on gender and governance called Raising Her Voice. And what's encouraging is that many of the projects that were started then have gone on to become, new programs in their own right, which is fabulous. So we worked together from 2007 through to 2010, and we put together what has become a certification in project management for NGOs, trying to take the best from the private sector, from the profession of project management, but contextualize it for international development. It was launched in 2010, and then I joined LINGOs full-time in 2011, and I'm responsible for any and all of our work with our partners and with other organizations in developing a capacity largely around program and project management. And what's exciting is that the the certification that we developed, has now, sort of taken wings, and something like 14,000 people have now been through that, and there have been exams done in 140 countries, which is amazing, really. And so I think this the session that we're doing today is very pertinent. It's clearly relevant. There's more and more interest in this, and it's at the right time as more and more people from more and more different organizations show interest. Because in the end, if we're not able to manage our projects to the best of our ability, we're failing our beneficiaries. We're failing the communities we're working with. I mean, and very often you find NGOs who are working with people who are already suffering a lot, or the environment is being degraded. And what we're trying to do is to maximize the value of those project investments. And project management doesn't do anything by itself at all, but it enables us to do so much more. So, that's very much my perspective on this. I'm not an evangelist for project management in its own right. However, I do think that if we manage our projects better, however we want to define that, it means that we are better able to serve our communities, we are better able to reach more people, and we can do more with the resources that we already have, and we can even find ways to attract further resources. So that's really where I'm coming from. And you've heard a little bit about me. So I live and breathe this stuff every day. And when I do training, I always say that the only silly question is the one that you don't ask. So it seems that that's a very good moment, Ben, to turn it back over to you and to everybody so that we can get started with the questions.
Great, great. That's wonderful. And just the update to you all, we have just about 500 people joining in via YouTube, Google, Twitter, all of those different areas. So, then I think the knowledge would be especially helpful. Walsh will send this after. But yeah, I think Angela had a great first question to go ahead and start with. So I'll toss it to her.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I had mentioned it in the beginning when I was introducing myself. It's really the delicacy of the when and how to sort of abandon really a failing project and without wasting funds and yet giving enough time for turnaround. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Thanks.
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for a great question. And, in many ways, I think it is a crucial question because it's, you sometimes see what I call, I have a whole sort of way of describing projects, which is sort of, the zombie project. It's not quite, it just keeps on coming. You can't quite close it down, and then there's the, there's a whole way of looking at these that sort of different monsters can help us with. But you're right. I mean, if the project, for whatever reason, if we are not able to deliver that project, the best thing to do is to either hand it over to somebody else or to stop. I think the big difficulty, Angela, is that this is really difficult for the project team to do. And I think this is, and a couple of people were asking about the differences between the sector and maybe the private sector, other sectors. I think that in our sector, people have often got a big emotional attachment to the project. And you see this anyway in any project, but in our sector, where people know it's helping these people or it's doing this very good work, and people want it to succeed. And that they become very caught up in that, which is understandable. It's why they work for NGOs in the first place. So it's really tough for the project team to do this. So this is why I think that getting good project governance is essential. And it's not just about, I mean, this is one of the big questions, but it's sooner or later, any project, every project is going to have to take big decisions that are outside the scope of the project manager to do. And sometimes, I mean, we work in difficult places. We manage projects that nobody else wants to touch with a barge pole. That's why it's our sector that's doing them, whether we're working on famine relief, environmental problems, whatever it is. The private sector doesn't want to do it or hasn't wanted to do it. So we're working in difficult circumstances. Context change. Earlier in November, I was working in eastern Turkey with Syrian organizations who are working. They're training people to go and manage projects and train people inside Syria. And you're talking about the problems they're dealing with. Yeah, an airstrike just destroyed the water distribution system. That's a big problem. And so how do you take all of these big decisions that are going to have to be taken? And I think it's really useful for organizations to identify as early as possible what's the process going to be, who is going to be, what voices need to be present when you take those big decisions. Because you also sometimes see, oh, well, the director takes the decision, and then it's seen as a diktat. And then a stakeholder says, I expected to be involved. Why didn't you tell me? And you end up going around in some what can be quite unpleasant circles. So I think it is being clear who is going to take those decisions, who needs to be involved, who needs to participate, who do we need to consult with in that process, and knowing that it's the project manager and the team might have an input into it, but that decision probably needs to be taken somewhere else. So I think it's very hard to say in this project or that project, but what's the process, who's going to take the decision, and then can you develop indicators? So it's not waiting until there's a big problem before anybody starts talking to each other, but having regular review points. That might be different for different projects. It might be every month, it might be every quarter, but there's a regular moment where you can stop, take stock, look at the project. How are we doing? Are we on time, on scope, on budget? Do we need to make any adjustments? Do we have a plan for the next period? Yes, we do. Good, fantastic. Let's open that, let's call it a decision gate. Let's open that gate and move forward. And you can engage your internal and external stakeholders in this process. So people know what's going on, they're on the same page, then when there is a big decision to make, people know what's going on, and the process has been decided in advance. When it's really difficult is when you're trying to take the decision and work out the process and manage the relationships all at the same time. I think that's when it can go wrong quite quickly. So that was a long answer to a very sensible and short question, but I hope it helped.
Great. Thanks so much, John. How about we go to Anne?
Hello. My question deals with something that my teams and the teams of the organizations I've consulted with constantly take issue with, and that is paperwork. I find that frontline workers who are often incredibly passionate about their work are turned off by the idea of documenting, but they are so important to the monitoring phase of PME&L. And if the data isn't collected, then there's just no way of going forward. The process just stops. So do you have any tried and true methods for getting them to buy into the process?
Again, what a fantastic question. Although I have sympathy with the frontline staff. I mean, I'm turned off by paperwork as well. So it's. But I mean, I think you've actually hit a real problem, and it's not just about documenting for, say, monitoring and evaluation, but I mean just what's going on in the project. And it's really easy when you look at project management stuff, this tool and that tool, and then let's have another tool, and we could do this as well. And all people are doing are filling in bits of paper. And projects aren't managed by bits of paper. They're managed by people doing something. I sometimes think that projects are all about the right people having the right conversation at the right time. What we want, though, are the tools that can help maybe provoke the conversation, structure it, and hopefully document it. So what I'd suggest, Anne, is first of all involving people. I think that's really important, so people know why it matters. But hopefully, the tools that you use can be constructed in such a way that it actually gives them something that is of value to them directly. Let me give you an example of that. You see so many people talking about lessons learned, and then people say, yes, so we have a lessons learned log. So we give people something extra to do. You know, sometimes I think, well, if you're already using an issues log to talk about problems, and a lot of people like that tool because it actually, you know, even if the senior people rarely see it, it helps the people on the ground just track the stuff that's going wrong and who's doing what about it. Well, if you took a list of all of the problems that you've had in the previous month and spent an hour at the end of the month just talking about it and documenting that, maybe, dare I say it, not in a bit of paper, but a video, or something, whatever it is. You know, make us a quick video of people talking about it, you know, on a phone. You know, that can actually, rather than having an issues log and a lessons learned log and something else, well, maybe we can combine them. I also think it's about looking at the information chain. I've seen a lot of cases where the frontline staff are expected to complete data that then disappears into the institutional vortex, and it's sucked up. So it's like an extractive industry for the people on the ground, and they don't get anything back. They don't get useful reports. They don't get stuff back. Well, you know, if they don't get anything useful out of it, why should they engage? And I think a lot of project management in our sector is really focused the wrong way around. It's focused on the senior people and helping them sleep easy at night so they think that things are under control. And I think that the more we can do to help the people on the ground, the better. Because in the end, even if it's beautifully documented, if the stuff on the ground isn't good, the beautiful documentation doesn't matter. So I say it's really being very, very clear what's really important, what needs to be documented. I saw one NGO did a great exercise. They looked at everything, said, what do we need to know? What must we know, and what would we like to know? And then all the stuff that was we would like to know, they just stopped. You know, it's really hard to get this balance. But it's what is going to add value and why? Who's going to use the information for what? What decision is going to be taken? And then being clear that sometimes you look at the timelines. Everybody is, oh, well, we need it for this report, but it's always late, so we're going to ask for it 2 weeks early. Well, the person who's doing it, they also know that everybody's late, so they add a week on. But by the time it gets to the field staff, it's yesterday, and they've got no flexibility at all. So I think I would really suggest looking at this from the point of view of the passionate frontline staff that you were talking about, really prioritize, involve them, and try to construct the tools so that it gives them something back as well, because then they've got a real interest in getting the data right. So those would be some of my suggestions, and ask them. You know, I bet you they've got some good ideas about what data would help them, and maybe starting from that you can build up from that point. So again, Ben, back to you. So again, thanks so much, Anne. That was a great question.
Thanks so much.